The horse was defecating in my living room when my son called for the third time that morning. I watched through my phone screen from my suite at the Four Seasons in Denver, sipping champagne while Scout, my most temperamental stallion, knocked over Sabrina's Louis Vuitton luggage with his tail. The timing was perfect, really. Divine, even. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from when this whole beautiful disaster began. 3 days ago, I was living my dream. At 67, after 43 years of marriage to Adam and 40 years of working as a senior accountant at Henderson & Associates in Chicago, I had finally found my peace. Adam had been gone for 2 years now. Cancer took him slowly, then all at once, and with him went my last reason to tolerate the city's noise, the endless demands, the suffocating expectations. The Montana ranch sprawled across 80 acres of God's finest work. Mountains painted the horizon purple at sunset. My mornings began with strong coffee on the wraparound porch, watching the mist rise from the valley while my 3 horses, Scout, Bella, and Thunder, grazed in the pasture. The silence here wasn't empty. It was full of meaning. Bird songs, wind through pines, the distant low of cattle from neighboring farms. This was what Adam and I had dreamed of, saved for, planned for. "When we retire, Gail," he'd say, spreading out ranch listings across our kitchen table, "we'll have horses and chickens and not a damn care in the world." He never made it to retirement, but I made it for both of us. The call that shattered my peace came on a Tuesday morning. I was mucking out Bella's stall, humming an old Fleetwood Mac song, when my phone buzzed. Scott's face appeared on the screen, the professional headshot he used for his real estate business in Chicago. All fake smile and expensive veneers. "Hi, honey," I answered, propping the phone against a hay bale. "Mom, great news." He didn't even ask how I was. "Sabrina and I are coming to visit the ranch." My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice level. "Oh? When were you thinking?" "This weekend. And get this, Sabrina's family is dying to see your place. Her sisters, their husbands, her cousins from Miami. 10 of us total. You've got all those empty bedrooms just sitting there, right?" The pitchfork slipped from my hand. 10 people? "Scott, I don't think—" "Mom." His voice shifted to that condescending tone he'd perfected since making his first million. "You're rattling around that huge place all alone. It's not healthy. Besides, we're family. That's what the ranch is for, right? Family gatherings? Dad would have wanted this." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced. How dare he invoke Adam's memory for this invasion? "The guest rooms aren't really set up for—" "Then set them up." "Jesus, Mom. What else do you have to do out there? Feed chickens? Come on. We'll be there Friday evening. Sabrina's already posted about it on Instagram. Her followers are so excited to see authentic ranch life." He laughed like he'd said something clever. "If you can't handle it, maybe you should think about moving back to civilization. A woman your age, alone on a ranch? It's not really practical, is it?" Before I could respond, he added the killing blow. "If you don't like it, just pack up and come back to Chicago. We'll take care of the ranch for you." He hung up before I could speak. I stood there in the barn, phone in my hand, as the full weight of his words settled over me like a burial shroud. Take care of the ranch for me. The arrogance, the entitlement, the casual cruelty of it all. That's when Thunder whinnied from his stall, breaking my trance. I looked at him, all 15 hands of glossy black attitude, and something clicked in my mind. A smile spread across my face, probably the first genuine smile since Scott's call. "You know what, Thunder?" I said, opening his stall door. "I think you're right. They want authentic ranch life. Let's give them authentic ranch life." I spent that afternoon in Adam's old study, making calls. First to Tom and Miguel, my ranch hands who lived in the cottage by the creek. They'd been with the property for 15 years, came with it when I bought it, and they understood exactly what kind of man my son had become. "Mrs. Morrison," Tom said when I explained my plan, his weathered face cracking into a grin, "it would be our absolute pleasure." Then I called Ruth, my best friend since college, who lived in Denver. "Pack a bag, honey," she said immediately. "The Four Seasons has a spa special this week. We'll watch the whole show from there." The next 2 days were a whirlwind of beautiful preparation. I removed all the quality bedding from the guest rooms, replacing Egyptian cotton with the scratchy wool blankets from the barn's emergency supplies. The good towels went into storage. I found some delightful sandpaper textured ones at a camping supply store in town. The thermostat for the guest wing? I set it to a cozy 58 degrees at night, 79 during the day. Climate control issues, I'd claim. Old ranch houses, you know. But the pièce de résistance required special timing. Thursday night, while installing the last of the hidden cameras, amazing what you can order on Amazon with 2-day delivery, I stood in my living room and visualized the scene. The cream-colored carpets I'd spent a fortune on, the restored vintage furniture, the picture windows overlooking the mountains. This is going to be perfect, I whispered to Adam's photo on the mantel. You always said Scott needed to learn consequences. Consider this his graduate course. Before I left for Denver Friday morning, Tom and Miguel helped me with the final touches. We led Scout, Bella, and Thunder into the house. They were surprisingly cooperative, probably sensing the mischief in the air. A bucket of oats in the kitchen, some hay scattered in the living room, and nature would take its course. The automatic water dispensers we set up would keep them hydrated. The rest? Well, horses will be horses. The Wi-Fi router went into the safe. The pool, my beautiful infinity pool overlooking the valley, got its new ecosystem of algae and pond scum I'd been cultivating in buckets all week. The local pet store was happy to donate a few dozen tadpoles and some vocal bullfrogs. As I drove away from my ranch at dawn, my phone already showing the camera feeds, I felt lighter than I had in years. Behind me, Scout was investigating the couch. Ahead of me lay Denver, Ruth, and a front row seat to the show of a lifetime. Authentic ranch life indeed. The best part? This was only the beginning. Scott thought he could intimidate me into abandoning my dream, manipulate me into surrendering my sanctuary. He forgot one crucial thing. I didn't survive 40 years in corporate accounting, raise him mostly alone while Adam traveled, and build this life from scratch by being weak. Before you continue, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. No, my dear son was about to learn what his father always tried to teach him, but he never listened. Never underestimate a woman who's got nothing left to lose and a ranch full of possibilities. Ruth popped the champagne cork just as Scott's BMW pulled into my driveway. We were nestled in the Four Seasons suite in Denver. Laptops open to multiple camera feeds. Room service trays scattered around us like we were conducting some delicious military operation, which, in a way, we were. "Look at Sabrina's shoes," Ruth gasped, pointing at the screen. "Are those Christian Louboutin?" I confirmed, watching my daughter-in-law totter across the gravel in 5-inch heels. $800, about to meet authentic Montana mud. The convoy behind Scott's car was even better than I'd imagined. 2 rental SUVs and a Mercedes sedan, all pristine city vehicles about to experience their worst nightmare. Through the cameras, I counted heads. Sabrina's sisters, Madison and Ashley, their husbands, Brett and Connor, Sabrina's cousins from Miami, Maria and Sophia, and their boyfriends whose names I'd never bothered to learn, and Sabrina's mother, Patricia, who emerged from the Mercedes wearing what appeared to be white linen pants. White linen pants on a ranch. "Gail, you absolute genius," Ruth whispered, clutching my arm as we watched them approach the front door. Scott fumbled with the spare key I'd told him about, the one under the ceramic frog that Adam had made in his pottery class. For a moment, I felt a pang of something. Nostalgia? Regret? But then I heard Sabrina's voice through the outdoor camera's audio feed. "God, it smells like shit out here. How does your mother stand it?" The pang disappeared. Scott pushed open the front door, and the magic began. The scream that erupted from Sabrina could have shattered crystal in 3 counties. Scout had positioned himself perfectly in the entryway, tail swishing majestically as he deposited a fresh pile of manure on my Persian runner. But it was Bella, standing in the living room like she owned the place, casually chewing on Sabrina's Hermes scarf that had fallen from her luggage, that really sold the scene. "What the fuck?" Scott's professional composure evaporated instantly. Thunder chose that moment to wander in from the kitchen, knocking over the ceramic vase Adam had made for our 40th anniversary. It shattered against the hardwood, and I surprised myself by not even flinching. Things were just things. This was priceless. "Maybe they're supposed to be here?" Madison suggested weakly, pressing herself against the wall as Thunder investigated her designer handbag with his massive nose. "Horses don't belong in houses," Patricia shrieked, her white linen already sporting suspicious brown stains from brushing against the wall where Scout had been rubbing himself all morning. Scott pulled out his phone, frantically calling me. I let it ring 3 times before answering, making my voice breathy and casual. "Hi, honey. Did you make it safely?" "Mom, there are horses in your house." "What?" I gasped, clutching my chest even though he couldn't see me. Ruth had to cover her mouth to stop from laughing. "That's impossible. They must have broken out of the pasture." "Oh dear, Tom and Miguel are visiting family in Billings this weekend. You'll have to get them back outside yourself." "How do I—" "Mom, they're destroying everything." "Just lead them out, sweetheart. There's halters and lead ropes in the barn. They're gentle as lambs. I'm so sorry. I'm in Denver for a medical appointment. My arthritis, you know. I'll be back Sunday evening." "Sunday? Mom, you can't—" "Oh, the doctor's calling me in. Love you." I hung up and turned the phone off completely. Ruth and I clinked glasses as we watched the chaos unfold on screen. The next 3 hours were better than any reality TV show ever produced. Brett, trying to be the hero, attempted to grab Scout's mane to lead him out. Scout, offended by such familiarity, promptly sneezed all over Brett's Armani shirt. Connor tried to shoo Bella with a broom, but she interpreted this as a game and chased him around the coffee table until he scrambled onto the couch, screaming like a child. But the crown jewel of the afternoon came when Maria's boyfriend, I think his name was Dylan, discovered the pool. "At least we can swim," he announced, already pulling off his shirt as he headed to the patio doors. Ruth and I leaned forward in anticipation. The scream when he saw the green, frog-infested swamp that had been my pristine infinity pool was so high-pitched that thunder, inside the house, neighed in response. The bullfrogs I'd imported were in full throat, creating a symphony that would have made Beethoven weep. The smell, I imagined, was spectacular. "This is insane," Sophia wailed, trying to get a phone signal in the living room while simultaneously dodging horse droppings. "There's no Wi-Fi, no cell service. How are we supposed to— There's horse shit on my Gucci." Meanwhile, Sabrina had locked herself in the downstairs bathroom, sobbing dramatically while Scott pounded on the door, begging her to come out and help. Patricia was on her own phone, walking in circles in the driveway, apparently trying to book hotel rooms. "Good luck with that," I murmured, knowing that the nearest decent hotel was 2 hours away and there was a rodeo in town this weekend. Everything would be booked solid. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across my monitors, the family had managed to herd the horses onto the back deck, but couldn't figure out how to get them down the steps and back to the pasture. The horses, clever things that they were, had discovered the outdoor furniture cushions and were having a delightful time tearing them apart. Madison and Ashley had barricaded themselves in one of the guest bedrooms, but I knew what was coming. The thermostat had kicked in, dropping the temperature to its programmed 58 degrees. Sure enough, within an hour, they emerged wrapped in the scratchy wool blankets, complaining about the cold. "There's no extra blankets anywhere," Ashley whined. "And these smell like wet dog." That's because they were dog blankets, from the local animal shelter's donation bin. I'd washed them, of course. Mostly. By 9 o'clock, they'd given up on dinner. The horses had somehow gotten back into the kitchen. Tom had installed a special latch on the back door that looked locked but wasn't, and had eaten most of the groceries they'd brought. Sabrina's Instagram-worthy charcuterie board was now Scout's dinner, and the organic vegetables from Whole Foods were scattered across the floor like confetti. Scott found the emergency supplies in the pantry: canned beans, instant oatmeal, and powdered milk. The same supplies I'd lived on for a week when we first moved to the ranch and a snowstorm cut us off from town. But for this crowd, it might as well have been prison food. "I can't believe your mother lives like this," Patricia said, loud enough for the kitchen camera to pick up clearly. "No wonder Adam died. He probably wanted to escape this hellhole." I felt Ruth's hand squeeze mine. She knew how much Adam had loved this dream, how he'd drawn sketches of the ranch layout on napkins during chemo treatments, making me promise to live our dream even if he couldn't. "That bitch," Ruth muttered. "Want me to call her restaurant and cancel her reservations for the next month? I know people." I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in days. "No, sweet friend. The horses are handling this beautifully." As if on cue, Thunder appeared in the background of the kitchen feed, tail lifted, depositing his opinion of Patricia directly behind her white designer sneakers. When she stepped backward, the squelch was audible even through the computer speakers. The screaming started all over again. By midnight, they'd all retreated to their assigned bedrooms. The guest wing cameras showed them huddled under inadequate blankets, still in their clothes because their luggage was either horse-damaged or still in the cars, too afraid to go back outside where the horses might be lurking. The automatic rooster alarm I'd installed in the attic was set for 4:30 a.m. The speakers were military-grade, used for training exercises. Tom's brother had sourced them from an army surplus store. "Should we order more champagne?" Ruth asked, already reaching for the room service menu. "Absolutely," I said, watching Scott pace his bedroom, gesturing wildly as he argued with Sabrina in harsh whispers. "And maybe some of those chocolate-covered strawberries. We're going to need sustenance for tomorrow's show." Through the cameras, I saw Scott pull out his laptop, probably trying to find hotels or figure out how to call a large animal removal service. But without Wi-Fi, that expensive MacBook was just a very pretty paperweight. I smiled, thinking of the note I'd left in the kitchen, hidden under the coffee maker they'd eventually find in the morning. "Welcome to authentic ranch life. Remember, early to bed, early to rise. Rooster crows at 4:30. Feeding time is 5 a.m. Enjoy your stay, Mom." Tomorrow, they'd discover the task board I'd prepared, complete with mucking out stalls, collecting eggs from my very aggressive chickens, and repairing the fence that I'd strategically weakened near the pig pen at the Petersons' farm next door. Their pot-bellied pigs were escape artists who loved nothing more than investigating new territory. But tonight I would sleep in luxury while my son learned what his father always knew. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned. And sometimes, the best teachers have 4 legs and absolutely no patience for bullshit. The rooster recording erupted at 4:30 a.m. with the force of 1,000 suns. Through my laptop screen at the Four Seasons, I watched Scott bolt upright in bed, tangled in the scratchy wool blanket, his hair standing at angles that defied physics. The sound was magnificent. Not just one rooster, but an entire symphony of roosters I'd mixed together, amplified to concert levels. "What the hell is that?" Sabrina shrieked from under her pillow. Ruth had stayed the night in my suite, and we were already on our second pot of coffee, fresh fruit and pastries arranged between us like we were watching the Super Bowl. "Is that the actual volume?" Ruth asked, wincing as Patricia's scream joined the chorus from the next room. "Oh no," I said sweetly, adjusting my reading glasses. "I turned it up a bit. You know, my hearing isn't what it used to be. I need it loud to wake up." The beauty of the system was its persistence. Every time someone thought it was over, another rooster would crow. I'd programmed it to continue for exactly 37 minutes with random intervals, just long enough to ensure no one could fall back asleep. By 5 a.m., the exhausted group had stumbled into the kitchen, looking like extras from a zombie movie. Ashley's hair extensions were tangled beyond recognition. Brett had horse manure still caked on his designer jeans. Maria's boyfriend, David, had given up entirely and was wearing a scratchy blanket as a cape. Scott found my note under the coffee maker. His face as he read it was a masterpiece of evolving horror. "Feeding time?" Connor read over his shoulder. "What feeding?" That's when they heard the sounds from outside. My automatic feeders had failed to dispense. I'd disabled them remotely, which meant 30 chickens, 6 pigs from Peterson's farm who'd mysteriously found their way through the weakened fence during the night, and my 3 horses were all congregating near the house, voicing their displeasure. The chickens were the loudest. I'd specifically selected the most aggressive heritage breeds, including a rooster named Diablo who'd won 3 county fair competitions for most ornery fowl. "We're not farmers," Madison wailed, mascara from yesterday streaking down her cheeks. "This is insane." "Just ignore them," Sabrina commanded, trying to maintain some authority. "We'll go to town for breakfast." Scott's phone GPS helpfully informed them that town was 43 minutes away, one way. The nearest Starbucks, 2 hours. "I found instant coffee," Sophia announced, holding up the jar of decaf I'd left prominently displayed. They wouldn't find the real coffee I'd hidden behind the 10-year-old canned pears until much later, if at all. While they struggled with the ancient stovetop percolator I'd substituted for my Keurig machine, the animals grew louder. Thunder had discovered he could bang the gate with his head, creating a rhythmic boom that echoed across the valley. The pigs had found the patio furniture and were enthusiastically redesigning the outdoor seating area. But Diablo had discovered he could fly just high enough to land on the kitchen window ledge. The face-to-face encounter between Sabrina and Diablo through the glass was cinematic. She screamed. He screamed back. She threw the decaf at the window. He pecked at the glass with increased vigor. "We have to feed them to make them stop," Scott finally admitted, looking defeated already, and it wasn't even 6 a.m. "I'm not touching those things," Patricia announced, settling imperiously into a kitchen chair that immediately wobbled. I'd loosened one leg just enough to be annoying, but not dangerous. "Mom's right," Sabrina said. "You're the man, Scott. You and the other guys handle it." I watched Scott's jaw clench. His father would have already been out there, animals fed, probably riding thunder bareback across the pasture. Adam had grown up on a farm in Iowa, something Scott had always been embarrassed about, preferring to tell people his father was in agriculture technology. The men ventured out like they were entering a war zone. Through the outdoor cameras, I watched Brett immediately step in a fresh pile of horse manure. Scout was nothing if not prolific. Connor tried to open the feed bin, but jumped back screaming when 3 mice scurried out. They'd moved in after I'd stopped storing the feed properly a few days ago. But the best moment came when Derek or David approached the chicken coop with the feed bucket. Diablo, defender of his territory, launched himself at the poor boy with the fury of a feathered missile. The bucket went flying, feed scattered everywhere, and suddenly it was chaos. Chickens swarming, pigs charging over from the patio, and the horses trotting over to investigate. Scott tried to maintain order, shouting commands like he was still in his Chicago boardroom, but farm animals don't respond to corporate leadership strategies. Thunder, in particular, seemed to take offense to Scott's tone and expressed his displeasure by knocking him into the water trough. Inside, the women weren't faring better. The kitchen sink had developed a mysterious leak, loose washer, courtesy of Tom. The stove took forever to heat. I'd adjusted the gas flow, and every drawer they opened seemed to contain something unexpected. Mouse traps, rubber snakes, to keep real snakes away, of course, or my collection of veterinary supplies, including very large syringes for horse vaccinations. "There's something wrong with the eggs!" Ashley shrieked, holding up a green one. "They're defective." I laughed so hard Ruth had to pause the video. My Amarocana chickens laid the most beautiful blue and green eggs, but city folks always thought something was wrong with them. By 7 a.m., they'd managed to produce what might charitably be called breakfast: burnt instant oatmeal, green eggs that Sophia refused to touch, and instant decaf that tasted like disappointed dreams. The milk was powdered because the fresh milk in the fridge had mysteriously gone sour. I'd adjusted the refrigerator temperature before leaving. "I need a shower," Sabrina announced. "A long, hot shower." Oh, sweet summer child. The guest bathroom shower had 2 settings: Arctic blast or surface of mercury. The water pressure could strip paint or barely drizzle, nothing in between. I'd also replaced all the luxury towels with those camping ones that absorbed about as much water as wax paper. Sabrina's shrieks when she encountered the cold water were audible even from the kitchen. Then the hot water kicked in, and the shrieks went up an octave. Madison tried the other guest bathroom and discovered that the drain was slow, hair from the horses' tails that Tom had carefully placed, causing the shower to flood. Meanwhile, Scott was trying to get online to handle what he claimed were urgent business matters. He'd found the router, plugged it in, but couldn't understand why it wasn't working. He couldn't see that I'd changed the password to a 47-character string of random symbols and hidden the paper with the new password inside the barn, specifically in the middle of the hay bales in the loft. "Maybe there's Wi-Fi in town," Connor suggested hopefully. "I'm not driving 40 minutes for internet," Scott snapped. The stress was getting to him. Good. That's when they discovered the next phase of my plan, the task board in the mudroom, which I'd titled Daily Ranch Responsibilities. In Adam's handwriting, I'd carefully copied. It was laminated and official looking, like something that had been there forever. Muck stalls, 8 a.m. Collect eggs, 8:30 a.m. Wear protection. Check fence lines, 9 a.m. Move irrigation pipes, 10 a.m. Feed chickens again, 11 a.m. They're on a special diet. Clean pool filters, noon. Clean the pool? Brett perked up. Maybe it's not as bad as it looked yesterday. Sweet, naive Brett. The pool in daylight was even worse. The algae had bloomed overnight into a green carpet. The bullfrogs had invited friends, something that might have been a small alligator, but was probably just a large stick floated ominously in the deep end. The smell could have peeled paint. "We're not doing this," Patricia announced. "This is not what we came here for." "Then why did you come, Patricia?" I said to the screen, though she couldn't hear me. "For the free vacation? For the Instagram photos? To case my property to see what your daughter married into?" Ruth poured more champagne. We'd switched from coffee as we watched them argue. Sabrina wanted to leave immediately. Scott insisted they couldn't let the animals starve. The cousins from Miami were already packing. Brett was Googling, "Can you get diseases from horse manure?" on his phone, using what little cell signal he could find by standing on one leg near the chicken coop. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Scott, frustrated and desperate, went to my bedroom to look for anything that might help. A different Wi-Fi password, contact information for Tom and Miguel, anything. He found the envelope on my dresser, addressed to him in my handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one paragraph. "Scott, by the time you read this, you'll have experienced about 1% of what running a ranch actually entails. Your father did this every day for the last 2 years of his life, even during chemo, because he loved it. This wasn't just my dream, it was ours. If you can't respect that, if you can't respect me, then you don't belong here. The horses know it, the chickens know it, even the bullfrogs in the pool know it. Do you?" Under that was a photo Adam had taken a month before he died. He was sitting on Thunder, wearing his beat-up cowboy hat, grinning like he'd won the lottery. In the background, barely visible, was me, mucking out stalls in rubber boots and his old flannel, laughing at something he'd said. We'd been so happy here, so complete. Through the camera, I watched my son sink onto my bed, letter in hand, his face cycling through emotions I hadn't seen since Adam's funeral. Shame, recognition, maybe even understanding. But then Sabrina's voice cut through the moment. "Scott, there's something wrong with the toilet. It won't stop making noise." The spell broke. He folded the letter, put it in his pocket, and went to deal with the mysteriously running toilet. A simple flapper adjustment that would take 5 seconds if you knew what you were doing, hours if you didn't. We ordered lunch at the Four Seasons. I had the salmon. Ruth had the prime rib. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Scott, 23 from Sabrina, and one text from Patricia that just said, "This is elder abuse. Elder abuse." I laughed so hard the waiter came to check on us. The sun was setting on their first full day at the ranch. Through the cameras, I could see them gathered in the living room, exhausted, dirty, and defeated. They'd managed to feed the animals, badly, collect some eggs, losing 3 to Diablo's fury, and Brett had fallen into the pool trying to skim the algae. They were eating canned beans and stale crackers for dinner because no one wanted to drive to town, and the horses had gotten into the kitchen again while they were outside, eating everything else edible. "One more day," I told Ruth, raising my glass. "One more day and they'll break completely." "You're evil," she said admiringly. "Absolutely evil." "No," I corrected, thinking of Adam, of the life we'd built, of the dreams Scott wanted to steal. "I'm just a rancher protecting her land." Saturday morning arrived with what I can only describe as biblical precision. At 3:47 a.m., the Petersons' pigs discovered that the hole in the fence had somehow gotten larger overnight, thanks to Tom's late-night handiwork before he'd left for his family visit. All 6 pigs, led by a massive sow named Bertha, made their way onto my property and discovered the ultimate treasure. Sabrina's Mercedes, windows cracked for ventilation. The car alarm at 4 a.m. was spectacular. Through the cameras, I watched Scott stumble outside in his underwear and those ridiculous city slippers, trying to chase 3 pigs out of the back seat. Bertha had made herself comfortable in the driver's seat and was enthusiastically eating what looked like Sabrina's $500 calfskin purse. "This can't be happening," he kept repeating, a mantra against the chaos. But oh, it was. The rooster recording joined the symphony at 4:30, right on schedule. This time, I'd added some peacock screams to the mix. The sound was so unholy that Connor actually fell out of bed, taking the scratchy blanket and a lamp with him. By the time everyone congregated in the kitchen at 5 a.m., they looked like survivors of some apocalyptic event. Patricia's white linen had been abandoned for what appeared to be her husband's golf clothes from 1987 that she'd found in the attic. Madison was wearing a horse blanket as a dress. Derek David had given up entirely and was shirtless despite the morning chill. "We're leaving," Sabrina announced. "Today. Now." "The car?" Scott started. "I don't care about the car. Call a rental company." That's when they discovered that the nearest car rental was at the airport, 2 hours away, and they were booked solid due to the rodeo. The local taxi company? One car, and Bud Thompson was visiting his daughter in Seattle. "We could call an Uber," Ashley suggested hopefully. The looks everyone gave her could have curdled milk. Uber in rural Montana, from a ranch 43 minutes from town, with no cell service to even book it. "I found coffee," Brett announced triumphantly, holding up the can of real coffee I'd hidden. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen from any of them. They were so focused on the coffee that no one questioned why Brett was searching behind 10-year-old canned goods. Small mercies in desperate times. While they waited for the ancient percolator to work its magic, a new sound joined the morning chorus. Thunder had learned to open the barn door. Not break it down, literally work the latch with his teeth. He was now leading Bella and Scout in what could only be described as a victory parade around the house. "How are they so smart?" Maria wailed, watching the horses through the window. "They're ranchers' horses," I said to my laptop screen, toasting them with my mimosa. "They learn from the best." That's when nature called, literally. The septic system, which I'd had serviced just before my strategic departure, but had told Scott was acting up lately, chose that moment to back up, just a little. Just enough to make the downstairs bathroom unusable and create a smell that had everyone fleeing to the porch, where Diablo was waiting. The rooster had apparently decided the porch was his new kingdom. He'd established himself on the porch swing and was defending his territory with the passion of a medieval knight. Connor tried to reason with him. "You can't reason with a rooster." Diablo launched himself with wings spread and spurs ready. Connor's retreat broke the land speed record. "We need help," Scott finally admitted, pulling out his phone to try calling me again. This time, I answered on the first ring, voice cheerful as Christmas morning. "Hi, honey, how's the ranch?" "Mom, we need you to come back. Everything is falling apart." "Oh dear, what's wrong?" He started listing the disasters, his voice growing more frantic with each item. I made appropriate concerned noises while Ruth filmed me for posterity, my Oscar-worthy performance of a concerned mother. "Well," I said when he finally ran out of breath, "Tom and Miguel should be back Monday. They'll know what to do. In the meantime, there's a manual in the barn for all the equipment and systems. Your father wrote it all down." This was true. Adam had meticulously documented everything about the ranch. The manual was 300 pages, laminated, and currently stored in the hayloft under approximately 500 bales. Good luck finding it. "Monday? Mom, we can't." "Oh, my doctor's calling. The specialist, you know. For my arthritis. Got to go." I hung up and turned the phone off again. Through the cameras, I watched Scott throw his phone against the porch rail. It bounced off and landed in a fresh pile of pig droppings. The day progressed like a symphony of chaos. They tried to do laundry, but I'd left only the eco-friendly detergent that required precise measurements in hot water, which the guest wing didn't have consistently. Madison's white designer dress came out a patchy gray. Ashley's silk blouse dissolved entirely. They attempted to go to town for supplies, but discovered that Scott's BMW had a flat tire. Roofing nail accidentally dropped near his parking spot. Sabrina's Mercedes still had pigs in it. Bertha had claimed it as her new home, and the rental SUVs were somehow locked with the keys inside. A mystery that would have been solved if they'd noticed the helpful crow who'd learned to pick up shiny objects. By noon, the temperature in the guest bedrooms had risen to the programmed 79 degrees. Without proper ventilation, I'd closed the attic vents. It was like a sauna. They opened windows, which let in the flies that had been attracted by all the animal activity. "There's food in the freezer," Connor announced, pulling out what looked like a roast. What he didn't know was that it was venison from last year's hunting season, labeled simply meat in Adam's handwriting. They defrosted it in the microwave, turning it into rubber. The smell alone could have been classified as a weapon. Lunch became crackers, and the green eggs no one wanted to eat, while outside, the animals had organized themselves into what looked like a protest. The horses stood at the kitchen window, staring accusingly. The chickens had discovered they could hop onto the porch roof and were now pecking at the bedroom windows upstairs. The pigs had moved from the Mercedes to explore the BMW, and one ambitious piglet had somehow gotten into the engine compartment. "This is insane," Patricia kept repeating, fanning herself with a paper plate. "Absolutely insane." Then came the rain. Montana summer storms are magnificent, sudden, violent, and thorough. This one arrived at 2 p.m. with thunderclaps that shook the house. The rain came sideways, finding every gap in the windows I'd strategically left unsealed. Within minutes, the guest bedrooms were soaked. But the real discovery came when they tried to close the windows. The old wooden frames, which I'd been meaning to fix but conveniently forgot to mention, had swollen in the humidity. They were stuck open. Brett and Connor tried to force them, but succeeded only in breaking one completely, leaving a gaping hole that the rain exploited enthusiastically. "We need towels!" Sabrina screamed. Oh, honey, those camping towels weren't going to help much. They used the scratchy blankets, their clothes, anything absorbent to try to stem the water. Meanwhile, the roof in the mudroom, which had that tiny leak I'd noticed but hadn't mentioned, turned into a waterfall. The task board I'd so carefully laminated floated by like a little raft of responsibility. The storm passed after an hour, leaving everything damp and smelling like wet wool. The power flickered and went out. My backup generator, which would have kicked in automatically, was mysteriously out of propane. I'd had Tom empty it. The manual start generator in the barn required reading a 16-page instruction booklet. In Japanese. I'd switched the manuals as a joke months ago, forgetting to switch them back. Serendipity. As darkness fell, they huddled in the living room with candles I'd left, trick birthday candles that relight when you blow them out. Watching them try to figure out why the candles kept relighting was better than cable TV. "We could cook on the grill," Scott suggested, trying to salvage something from the day. The gas grill was empty. The charcoal grill required actual charcoal knowledge. They attempted it anyway, producing what could generously be called blackened everything. Even the vegetables were somehow both burnt and raw. Dinner was canned beans again, cold this time, eaten in the flickering light of the trick candles while rain dripped through various ceiling spots, and Diablo paced the porch like a feathered sentry. "I want to go home," Sophia said quietly. It was the first completely honest thing any of them had said. "This is Scott's home now," Patricia said acidly. "His inheritance, right, Scott? This is what you wanted?" Through the infrared camera, battery-powered, of course, I saw my son's face. He looked broken. "Good. I just thought," he started. "You thought you'd take over Mom's retirement paradise," Sabrina finished. "Turn it into our vacation home. Maybe rent it out when we weren't here. You talked about it for months," Madison added. "How much money the property was worth, how you could subdivide it. Subdivide it. My 80 acres. Our dream." Ruth squeezed my hand as we watched. "You okay?" "I'm perfect," I said, and meant it. At 9 p.m., something magical happened. The clouds cleared, revealing a stunning Montana night sky. Thousands of stars, the Milky Way visible in all its glory. Through the cameras, I watched them venture onto the porch. Diablo had finally retired to the coop. For a moment, they were silent, looking up at something most of them had never seen. A sky unpolluted by city lights. Connor pointed out Mars. Ashley saw her first shooting star. Even Patricia seemed subdued by the majesty of it. "It's beautiful," Sabrina admitted quietly. "Dad loved this," Scott said suddenly. "He used to email me photos of the night sky here. I always deleted them without looking." The confession hung in the air like another star. "He built this place for Mom," he continued. "Every fence post, every garden bed. Even when he was sick, he was out here working. And I called it a waste of money." "You said worse than that," Patricia reminded him. Because of course she did. The moment shattered. They went back inside to their damp, dark rooms. Through the night vision cameras, I watched them toss and turn on the uncomfortable beds. Too hot, then too cold. Scratchy blankets providing little comfort. At midnight, the coyotes started howling. Not close enough to be dangerous, but close enough to be heard clearly through the broken window. Then the owls joined in. Then Bertha, still in the Mercedes, discovered the horn. Sunday. One more day. Tomorrow, they would break completely. and I would return to reclaim my kingdom. But tonight, just for a moment under those stars, Scott had remembered his father. That was more than I'd expected, maybe more than he deserved. "Ready for the grand finale?" Ruth asked, pulling up the weather forecast on her phone. I looked at the prediction for Sunday, 102 degrees, no cloud cover, and a wind advisory. "Oh yes," I said, raising my champagne glass to the screen where my son sat in the dark, finally understanding what he'd tried to take. "Let's finish this properly." The best part? I hadn't even deployed my secret weapon yet. Tomorrow, they'd meet the llamas. Sunday dawned with what the weather service would later call an unprecedented temperature spike for the season. By 6 a.m., it was already 85 degrees. By 7 a.m., when the exhausted group stumbled into the kitchen after another rooster serenade, it was pushing 90. "Why is it so hot?" Ashley moaned, fanning herself with a paper towel. "Because, darling, I'd shut off the central air conditioning before I left, leaving only the inadequate window units in the guest rooms, which required electricity they didn't have. The manual override for the generator was in Adam's workshop, behind approximately 700 pounds of lumber I'd had Tom stack there for winter projects. Through my laptop at the Four Seasons, where Ruth and I were enjoying Eggs Benedict and perfectly controlled air conditioning, I watched them discover that the refrigerator, without power for over 12 hours, had become a box of spoiled potential food poisoning. The smell when Connor opened it sent everyone fleeing to the porch, where the llamas were waiting. Now I should explain about the llamas. They weren't mine. They belonged to the Johnsons 2 properties over. But llamas, like teenagers, tend to wander when they find weak spots in fences. And someone, definitely not Tom on my instructions, might have created a very convenient path from the Johnsons' south pasture directly to my front yard. 3 llamas: Napoleon, the spitter, Julius, the screamer, and Cleopatra, who had personal space issues. Brett was the first to make eye contact with Napoleon. Fatal mistake. The llama's ears went back, his neck arched, and with the accuracy of a trained sniper, he launched a green, grassy spray directly into Brett's face. The scream Brett produced harmonized beautifully with Julius's responding call, a sound somewhere between a rusty gate and a demon's laugh. Cleopatra, not to be outdone, decided Madison's hair looked like hay and tried to eat it. "What are these things?" Sabrina shrieked, dodging Julius's attempt to smell her armpit. "Guard llamas," I told my laptop screen. "Very effective ones. The thing about llamas is they're curious, extremely curious, and once they decide you're interesting, they follow you. Everywhere." The group retreated to the house, but the llamas simply stood at the windows, staring in with their enormous eyes, occasionally screaming their displeasure at being excluded. Inside, the temperature was climbing. Without power, without air conditioning, and with the morning sun turning the windows into magnifying glasses, the house was becoming an oven. They opened every window, which let in the flies that had multiplied exponentially thanks to all the animal droppings no one had properly cleaned. "We need ice," Scott declared, already sweating through his last clean shirt. The ice maker, of course, required electricity. The backup ice in the barn freezer had melted when the power went out. The nearest store was 43 minutes away, and the car situation hadn't improved. The BMW still had a flat. The Mercedes was now Bertha's permanent residence. She'd had piglets during the night, 5 of them, all nursing contentedly in the back seat. And the rental cars remained mysteriously locked. That's when Connor discovered the well. "There's a hand pump," he announced triumphantly. "We can at least get cold water." What Connor didn't know was that the well pump hadn't been maintained in years. It worked, technically, but the water came up rust-colored and smelling of sulfur. They tried it anyway. Maria threw up. Even the llamas backed away from the smell. By noon, the temperature hit 102. The metal roof was clicking and popping with expansion. The horses had found the only shade directly under the kitchen window and were contributing their own special aromatherapy to the situation. The chickens had given up entirely and were lying in dust bowls they'd created, panting with their beaks open. "I'm calling 911, Patricia announced, holding up her phone. "And telling them what?" Scott snapped, his patience finally gone. "That it's hot and there are llamas?" That's when Diablo, heat-stressed and furious about everything, discovered he could fly high enough to come through the broken bedroom window. The sounds from upstairs were a mixture of rooster rage and human hysteria. Derek David came running down with scratches on his arms and Diablo's tail feathers in his hand. It attacked me. The chicken attacked me in my sleep. Technically, no one had been sleeping, but the drama was appreciated. The afternoon brought the wind. Montana wind doesn't play. It comes in at 40 miles per hour and brings half the topsoil with it. The broken window became a portal for dust, hay, and what I can only describe as farm confetti. Within minutes, everything was coated in a fine layer of agricultural history. "We're leaving," Sabrina announced for the 100th time. "We'll walk to town if we have to." "It's 105 degrees, Scott pointed out. "It's over 40 miles. We'll die. We're dying here." That's when they heard the trucks. 3 pickup trucks rumbling down the drive, music blaring, horns honking. The cavalry? Rescue? No. It was the Hendersons from the next ranch over, coming for the Sunday social I'd forgotten to mention I'd signed up to host weeks ago. 15 people poured out of the trucks, carrying casserole dishes, coolers of beer, and a karaoke machine. Big Jim Henderson, all 300 pounds of him, grabbed Scott in a bear hug. "You must be Gail's boy. She told us all about you. Said you were dying to experience real ranch life." What? "Don't worry. We brought everything. Even got the mechanical bull in the truck. Your mama said you wanted to learn to ride." Ruth and I nearly choked on our mimosas, watching Scott's face as they unloaded an actual mechanical bull and set it up in the front yard. The llamas were fascinated. Napoleon immediately spit on it. The Hendersons, blessed souls, didn't care about the power outage. They had generators in their trucks. They didn't care about the heat. They were ranchers. They didn't even care about the llamas, though Big Jim's wife Dolly did ask, "These new?" Don't remember Gail mentioning llamas. What followed was 3 hours of forced socialization. The Hendersons were lovely people who assumed Scott's family were equally enthusiastic about ranch life. They wanted to hear all about their plans for the property, their favorite cattle breeds, their thoughts on rotational grazing. Madison tried to explain she was from Miami. Big Jim's son, Little Jim, who was actually bigger than Big Jim, took this as an invitation to tell her about every person he'd ever met from Florida, a story that took 45 minutes and included photos. Brett was forced onto the mechanical bull. He lasted 1.3 seconds before being launched into a pile of hay that the llamas had been using as a bathroom. The Hendersons cheered like he'd won the Olympics. Sabrina locked herself in the bathroom to cry, but Dolly followed her, assuming she needed girl talk about ranch wife life. Through the bathroom camera, I heard Dolly giving detailed advice about birthing cattle, treating foot rot, and the best way to castrate bulls. The karaoke started at 4 p.m. Big Jim insisted everyone participate. Connor's rendition of Friends in Low Places while Napoleon screamed along was particularly memorable. Patricia, forced to sing Stand By Your Man, looked like she was passing kidney stones. But the moment that broke, Scott completely came when Little Jim asked, "So when's your mom coming back?" "She promised to show me her new canning setup." "She's in Denver," Scott said weakly. "Medical stuff." "Medical stuff?" Big Jim boomed. "That woman's healthier than my prize bull. Saw her last week throwing hay bales like they were pillows. What kind of medical stuff?" Scott couldn't answer because that's when Bertha, protective of her new piglets, decided the mechanical bull was a threat. A 400-pound sow charging a mechanical bull while 15 ranchers scramble for safety and llamas scream. Encouragement is something nature documentaries should cover. The Hendersons finally left at sunset, but not before extracting promises to do this every Sunday and leaving behind the mechanical bull because y'all need practice. The family sat in the wreckage of the yard as darkness fell. No power, no food that was safe to eat, covered in dust, sweat, and various animal fluids. The temperature had dropped to a mere 95 degrees. "I want Mom," Scott said quietly. It was such a childlike statement that even Sabrina looked at him with something approaching sympathy. "I want my mom," he repeated. "I need to apologize." Through the camera, I saw him pull out the letter I'd left, now crumpled and stained. He read it again, this time out loud. When he got to the part about Adam doing this during chemo, his voice broke. "We should leave," Patricia said, but for once, her voice lacked venom. "With what car?" Scott laughed bitterly. We're stuck, like Mom wanted us to be. Maybe, Connor said carefully. She wanted you to understand something. Understand what? That ranch life is hell? That it's work, Connor said. Hard work, every day. And she does it alone now. The silence stretched. Even the llamas had quieted, silhouetted against the darkening sky. I told her she should sell, Scott admitted. The day after Dad's funeral, at the reception. I pulled her aside and said she was too old to handle this place alone. Said Dad was selfish for wanting to die here. Even Patricia winced at that. I had a buyer lined up, a development company. They would have paid 3 times what she paid for it. You were trying to sell your mother's home? Ashley asked, shocked. I thought I was helping. She's 67, alone, doing all this. He gestured at the chaos around them. I thought I was being practical. You thought you were getting rich, Sabrina corrected. The truth of it hung in the air like the dust that still swirled in the wind. That's when I decided it was time. I called Tom, who'd never actually left town. Phase 3, I said simply. With pleasure, Mrs. M, he replied. 30 minutes later, as the family sat in their dusty, defeated silence, headlights appeared on the drive. Tom's truck, pulling a trailer with 3 very familiar horses. Evening, folks, Tom said, tipping his hat. Got a call from Mrs. Morrison. Said you might need some help getting these horses back where they belong. It took them a moment to understand. The horses in the trailer were Scout, Bella, and Thunder, which meant the ones that had been terrorizing them. Whose horses are in the house? Scott asked weakly. Oh, those'd be the Petersons' rescue horses. They're filming a documentary about animal intelligence. Mrs. Morrison volunteered her place for the weekend. Didn't she mention it? They're trained to open doors, work latches, even use human toilets if needed. Though I see they didn't quite master that last one. The look on Scott's face was worth every penny of the 5 seasons presidential suite. The llamas are ours, though, Tom continued cheerfully. Well, the Johnsons. They'll want them back, eventually. Maybe. They're kind of assholes, honestly. As if in agreement, Napoleon spit one last time, hitting the mechanical bull with impressive accuracy. Mrs. Morrison will be back tomorrow morning, Tom said, already leading the rescue horses to the trailer. Said to tell you she hopes you enjoyed your authentic ranch experience. Oh, and the power's controlled by an app on her phone. She'll turn it back on when she gets home. He drove away, leaving them in the dark, literally and figuratively, with only the mechanical bull, the llamas, and their shattered assumptions for company. I turned to Ruth, who was recording everything for posterity. One more sunrise, I said. One more rooster call. Then I go home. Think they learned anything? I looked at my son on the screen, still clutching my letter, surrounded by the wreckage of his entitlement. We're about to find out. Monday morning arrived with what I can only call divine comedy. At exactly 3 a.m., the mechanical bull, which Big Jim had forgotten to mention, had a timer function, suddenly roared to life, complete with flashing lights and country music at maximum volume. The song of choice? Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. Through the infrared cameras, I watched Scott bolt upright from his makeshift bed on the living room floor. The guest rooms had become uninhabitable due to dust and mystery smells. He stumbled outside in his underwear to find Napoleon, the llama, riding the mechanical bull. I'm not joking. The llama had figured out how to climb on and was sitting there like a furry emperor while the machine gently rocked. Julius and Cleopatra stood nearby, screaming their approval. This isn't real, Scott said to no one. This can't be real. Oh, but it was. By the time he figured out how to unplug the bull, the cord was wrapped around Napoleon, who was not interested in dismounting. The rest of the family had gathered on the porch, looking like extras from a post-apocalyptic film. Hair matted, clothes filthy, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. Is that llama riding the bull? Sabrina asked in a broken whisper. Nothing surprises me anymore, Patricia responded. She'd aged 10 years in 3 days. The rooster alarm went off at 4:30, but this time, nobody even flinched. They were broken. Completely, utterly broken. As the sun rose, revealing the full devastation of their weekend, the pig-destroyed Mercedes, the mud-filled pool, the house that looked like a tornado had passed through, they sat on the porch steps in silence. Even Diablo seemed to sense the defeat and simply walked by without attacking anyone. That's when I arrived. I'd timed it perfectly. pulling up in my pristine Range Rover just as the morning sun hit the mountains. Ruth had done my hair and makeup at the hotel. I wore my best jeans, Adam's favorite flannel shirt, and the turquoise jewelry he'd given me for our last anniversary. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman in complete control of her domain. The family watched me emerge from the car like they were seeing a ghost, or maybe an avenging angel. "Good morning," I called cheerfully, grabbing my weekend bag. "How was your authentic ranch experience?" Nobody answered. They just stared. I walked past the mechanical bull. Napoleon had finally dismounted and was now eating my roses, stepped over the various droppings, and entered my house. Through the doorway, they could hear me humming as I started the coffee maker, the good one I'd hidden in the attic. "Mom?" Scott finally managed, following me inside. "Yes, dear? You were in Denver? The Four Seasons has an excellent spa. Did you know they have a treatment where they wrap you in Swiss chocolate? Very relaxing." I pulled out my phone, and with 3 taps, the power came back on. The air conditioning hummed to life. The refrigerator started its familiar purr. "You could control it the whole time," he said. It wasn't a question. "I can control quite a lot of things, Scott. This is my home." The others had crept inside, watching our interaction like it was live theater. The horses weren't mine. Yes, Scout, Bella, and Thunder are much better behaved. They're in the barn where they belong. The llamas will be going home soon, though Napoleon seems to have developed a fondness for that bull. "You planned everything." I turned to face him fully, channeling every moment of frustration, disappointment, and hurt from the past 2 years. "No, Scott, you planned everything. You planned to intimidate me into leaving. You planned to take over my home. You planned to turn our dream, your father's and mine, into some Airbnb investment. You even researched my finances and consulted with that development company about subdividing the property." Sabrina gasped. She hadn't known about that last part. "How did you—" "Mr. Davidson from the development company is married to my friend Ruth's sister. Small world, isn't it? He was very interested to learn that you were negotiating the sale of property you don't own. I was trying to help." "No." My voice could have frozen hell. "You were trying to help yourself, to your inheritance, as you called it. Tell me, Scott, what did you inherit from your father?" He was silent. "I'll tell you what he left you. He left you a mother who loves you despite your greed. He left you memories you ignored. He left you values you rejected. And he left you the opportunity to be a better man than you've chosen to be." I pulled out a document from my bag. "This is the deed to the ranch. As you can see, it's been transferred to a living trust. You are not a beneficiary. The ranch will be maintained as a working farm and animal sanctuary in perpetuity. When I die, it will be managed by the Henderson family, who actually understand what it means to love the land." Patricia made a strangled sound. Scott went pale. "You cut him out?" Sabrina whispered. "I gave him exactly what he gave me. No respect, no consideration, and no claim to what I've built." I turned to address the whole group. "You came here uninvited, treating my home like a hotel and me like the help. You posted on social media about inheriting a ranch before I was even dead. You complained about every aspect of the life your father and I chose while planning to profit from our labor." "That's not—" Scott started. "I have recordings, Scott. Every phone call where you discussed my decline. Every conversation with Sabrina about how to handle me. The group text where you all mocked the ranch and called me a stubborn old woman playing farmer." I pulled out my tablet, showing them screenshots. Their own words, damning and cruel. "But here's what you don't have recordings of," I continued. "Your father, 2 weeks before he died, sitting on that porch, making me promise not to let you destroy this place. He knew what you'd become. It broke his heart, but he knew." Scott sank into a chair. The weight of it all, the shame, the recognition, the loss, was finally hitting him. "I do love you, Scott," I said more gently. "I always will. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean sacrificing my dreams for your greed. And it certainly doesn't mean letting you turn our sanctuary into a commodity." "What are we supposed to do now?" Patricia asked, apparently still missing the point. "You're supposed to leave. Tom will be here soon with a tow truck for your cars. The rental company has been notified that you'll be returning the vehicles today. Yes, I found the keys. The crows had hidden them in the barn rafters. Fascinating creatures. Crows." "But," Sabrina started. But nothing. This is my home. You are no longer welcome here. The silence was deafening. Finally, Connor, of all people, spoke up. We owe you an apology, Mrs. Morrison. A real one. We're sorry, Ashley added quietly. This place it's actually beautiful. We just couldn't see it. I nodded acknowledgement but said nothing. Apologies were words. Adam always said to watch what people did, not what they said. It took 3 hours for them to pack and clean up the worst of the damage. I supervised, sitting on the porch with my coffee, occasionally calling out helpful suggestions. The pig after birth needs special cleaner. It's under the sink. Llama spit is acidic. Better scrub harder. That's not mud in the pool filter. Tom arrived with his tow truck and a crew. The cars were retrieved, cleaned, minimally, and made drivable. The llamas were loaded into a trailer, though Napoleon made his feelings known by spitting on Scott one last time for good measure. As they prepared to leave, Scott approached me one final time. Mom, I know, I said. You're sorry, you'll do better. You want another chance, right? He nodded miserably. Earn it, I said simply. Not with words, not with grand gestures, with time and genuine change. Your father spent 2 years building this place with his bare hands while fighting cancer. You can't even spend a weekend here without complaining. When you can match his commitment to something beyond yourself, call me. How will I know when that is? You'll know. He hugged me then, awkwardly, briefly. It was the first real emotion he'd shown all weekend. They drove away in a convoy of damaged vehicles and damaged egos. Sabrina didn't look back. Patricia was already on her phone, probably complaining to her bridge club. The cousins from Miami would have a story nobody would believe. But Scott looked back, once. And in that glance, I saw something that might have been understanding, or maybe just regret. Time would tell. Tom helped me release my actual horses back into the pasture. Scout immediately rolled in his favorite dust patch. Bella trotted to the apple tree. Thunder stood at the fence, surveying his kingdom with satisfaction. Hell of a weekend, Mrs. M, Tom said, grinning. Worth every penny of the hotel and your overtime pay. Mr. Morrison would have loved this. He would have, I agreed, though he probably would have used actual skunks instead of just skunk spray. We laughed, standing there in the afternoon sun, surrounded by the controlled chaos of a working ranch. That evening, I sat on the porch with a glass of Adam's favorite whiskey, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. The ranch was quiet, except for the normal sounds: horses nickering, chickens settling for the night, the distant low of cattle. My phone buzzed, a text from Scott. The mechanical bull is still in your yard. I texted back, consider it a monument to authenticity. Then I turned off my phone, raised my glass to Adam's memory, and enjoyed the perfect silence of a dream defended and a home reclaimed. Subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, what would you rate my response to uninvited guests? Remember, this is my story, my ranch, and my rules. The roosters would crow again tomorrow at 4:30. But tomorrow, I'd be the only one to hear them. And that's exactly how it should be. 3 weeks passed in blessed peace. The ranch returned to its rhythm. Morning coffee with the sunrise, afternoons tending the garden Adam and I had planted, evenings with my horses. The mechanical bull remained in the front yard, a monument to boundaries well defended. I'd planted flowers around it. The neighbors thought I'd lost my mind. I'd never been saner. Then the letter arrived. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter in Scott's careful script. The same penmanship I'd taught him when he was 7, sitting at our kitchen table in Chicago, his tongue poking out in concentration. Dear Mom, I've been volunteering at the Veterans Ranch in Colorado, the one that helps wounded warriors through equine therapy. I remembered Dad mentioning it once. I've been mucking stalls, feeding horses, and learning to shut up and listen. Yesterday, a veteran named Marcus, who lost both legs in Afghanistan, told me I reminded him of his son. Soft hands, hard head, he said. Then he taught me to bridle a horse named Warrior, who only trusts people who approach with genuine respect. It took 6 hours. I cried twice. Warrior finally let me near when I stopped trying to prove something and just sat in his stall, quiet, waiting for permission to exist in his space. I think I understand now. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know. Scott P.S. Sabrina filed for divorce. She kept the Mercedes. The pigs had done $30,000 in damage to the interior. I read it 3 times, sitting at the same kitchen table where I'd taught him to write. Was this growth or manipulation? Time would tell. Adam always said redemption was a marathon, not a sprint. 2 days later, Ruth called. You need to check Facebook. I rarely used social media, but I logged in to find something unexpected. Scott had posted a video. Grainy, clearly taken without his knowledge. He was in a barn, covered in mud and manure, wrestling with a bale of hay twice his size. He fell twice, got kicked once. Not hard, but enough. And when he finally got it into the stall, the horse immediately began spreading it everywhere. The caption read, Week 3 at Healing Hooves Veterans Ranch. Finally understand why my mom laughed when I said ranching was just feeding animals. This is Thor. He's teaching me humility. He's very good at his job. Mom, if you see this, I'm sorry for everything. The comments were interesting. Sabrina had written, This is why we're divorcing. Patricia added, waste of an MBA. But there were others. Veterans thanking him for his help. The ranch director praising his work ethic. Someone named Marcus writing, City boys getting there, slowly. I didn't respond. Not yet. A month later, another letter. Mom, today, a veteran's wife told me about losing their farm while he was deployed. They'd raised horses for 20 years. Had to sell everything, including a stallion they'd birthed and raised. She cried, describing the sunrise over their pastures. I helped them fill out paperwork for a grant to start over. It's what I'm good at. Paperwork, finances, systems. But now I understand what the numbers mean. Each line item is a dream. A morning coffee watching horses, an evening listening to coyotes. I think about Dad every day now. About how he looked that last morning on the ranch, even with the chemo destroying him, smiling at the mountains. He wasn't just looking at land. He was looking at love made tangible. I was so stupid, Mom. So incredibly stupid. Still not asking for anything. Scott, Tom stopped by that afternoon to help repair a fence. Heard your boys in Colorado, he said casually. News travels. My cousin works at that veteran place. Says there's a city fellow there working harder than most of the volunteers. Doesn't complain, doesn't quit. Shows up at 4 a.m. every day without being asked. Also heard he donated his entire commission from his last real estate deal to their therapy program. 6 figures. That was news. I kept my face neutral, but inside, something shifted slightly. 3 months in, the calls started. Not from Scott, but from others. The ranch director thanking me for raising a son who understood service. Marcus calling to say Scott had spent his own money to buy a therapy horse for a kid with autism. A veteran's widow saying Scott had helped save their family farm from foreclosure, pro bono. Then Ruth visited with her laptop. You need to see this. It was a blog post Scott had written for the Veterans Ranch website. Authentic Ranch Life, a City Son's Education. He detailed our weekend, honestly, brutally, hysterically. He owned every moment of his entitlement, his disrespect, his greed. But the ending was what got me. My mother defended her dream with horses, llamas, and a mechanical bull that still stands in her yard. She taught me that authentic isn't Instagram-worthy sunsets and mason jar aesthetics. It's 4 a.m. feedings in -20 weather. It's holding your dying husband's hand while he watches his last sunrise over land you've bled for. It's choosing hard work over easy money. Every single day. I wanted to steal that from her, to reduce her life's work to my profit margin. She gave me what I thought I wanted, authentic ranch life, and it broke me in the best possible way. If you're reading this, Mom, I get it now. Not fully, maybe never fully, but enough to know that what you and Dad built can't be bought or sold or inherited. It has to be earned, one sunrise at a time. P.S. Napoleon the llama was magnificent. Please tell the Hendersons. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I did something I hadn't done in 6 months. I called my son. Hello? His voice was tentative, afraid. The Hendersons got a new llama. Named him Bonaparte. He's worse than Napoleon. Silence. Then a laugh. Shaky but real. God help us all. Tom says you're doing good work in Colorado. Trying to. It's... Mom, these veterans, what they've sacrificed, and then they come here and find peace with horses. It's like what Dad found at our ranch during his last months. That kind of peace is worth everything. Yes, I said simply. It is. I've been thinking, he continued carefully, about Thanksgiving, not asking to come to the ranch. I know I haven't earned that yet, but maybe Dinner in town? Just you and me? I could drive up from Colorado. I considered this. The Riverside Diner does a decent turkey dinner. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. Keep working, keep learning. Ask me again in November. Fair enough. Mom? Yes? I love you. I should have led with that. You should have led with a lot of things, Scott. But late is better than never. After I hung up, I walked out to the pasture where Thunder stood waiting. He nickered softly, pushing his massive head into my chest. I scratched his favorite spot behind his ears, thinking about second chances and the long road to redemption. 2 weeks later, another surprise. A package arrived with Colorado postmarks. Inside was a photo album, professionally bound, carefully curated. The title page read, Adam Morrison, A Rancher's Legacy. Scott had somehow collected hundreds of photos I'd never seen. Adam at agriculture conferences, his presentations about sustainable farming, pictures from colleagues showing him teaching young farmers, mentoring, leading, photos from the feed store, the local diner, the veterinary clinic. Adam everywhere in our small community, respected, beloved, remembered. The last page was a photo I'd taken but forgotten. Adam and Scott, 5 years ago, attempting to fix a fence together. Both were laughing, Scott holding a hammer wrong, Adam gently correcting his grip. Below it, Scott had written, "He tried to teach me. I refused to learn. My loss, not his. Thank you for protecting what he loved most, you and the ranch. I didn't deserve inheritance. Love isn't inherited anyway. It's earned." I sat on the porch, album in my lap, as the sun set behind the mountains. Diablo strutted by, pausing to eye me suspiciously before continuing his patrol. The mechanical bull stood silent in the garden, surrounded by black-eyed Susans that had somehow decided to bloom in the chaos of its base. My phone rang. "Ruth, you okay, honey?" "I'm thinking about Thanksgiving," I admitted. "About maybe saying yes to dinner. Adam would want you to." Adam wanted a lot of things. Not all of them were wise, but most of them were kind. She was right. Adam's greatest strength and weakness, his relentless faith in people's ability to change. "I'll think about it," I said. October arrived with early snow, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. The horses grew their winter coats. I prepared the barn for the cold months ahead, working alone, but not lonely. The ranch was never lonely. Too much life, too much purpose, too much beauty. Then Scott's third letter arrived. "Mom, a boy came to the ranch today, 15, angry at everything. His dad died in Iraq when he was 3. His mom remarried an asshole. He reminded me of myself, all that anger with nowhere to go but inward or outward, both destructive. I taught him to muck stalls. He complained the entire time, said it was stupid, pointless, beneath him. I just kept working beside him, remembering you doing the same that weekend, never rising to my bait, just consistently demonstrating what needed done. Hour 3, he finally asked why I volunteered here when I clearly had money. The BMW gave me away. I told him about you, about Dad, about the ranch, about learning too late that what looks like mundane work is actually love in action, that every stall cleaned makes space for healing. That dignity isn't about being above certain work, but about doing all work with purpose. He stopped complaining. We worked in silence after that. Good silence, like you and Dad used to share. At the end, he asked if he could come back tomorrow. I said yes, if he promised to arrive before the rooster crows. He asked what time that was. I said 4:30. He said his mom could drop him at 4. "Mom, I think I understand now why you didn't just tell me these things. Some lessons can't be taught, only learned. And they can't be learned without the work. Thank you for making me do the work. Your son, still learning, Scott." I called him that night. "Thanksgiving," I said without preamble. "But not at the diner, here, at the ranch." Silence. Then, barely audible. "Really? You'll arrive the day before. You'll help with the morning feeding. You'll sleep in the guest room, the cold one with the scratchy blankets. You'll help me cook using eggs from Diablo's harem. And if you complain even once, you'll meet Bonaparte the llama. Mom, I thank you. I won't let you down. You already have. That's not the point anymore. The point is who you choose to be next. I choose better. We'll see." November came fast. The day before Thanksgiving, I watched from the window as Scott's BMW navigated the drive. He parked, sat in the car for a full minute, gathering courage, then emerged. He was different. Leaner, harder, calloused hands visible even from a distance. He moved differently too, less swagger, more purpose. When thunder whinnied from the pasture, Scott walked directly to the fence, offering his hand for the horse to smell. Thunder, magnificent judge of character that he was, considered for a long moment, then pushed his nose into Scott's palm. "Hi, Mom," Scott said when I emerged onto the porch. "You're late. Feeding started 10 minutes ago." He grinned, his father's grin, the one I hadn't seen in years. "Then I better get to work." We worked side by side in companionable silence, mucking stalls, distributing hay, checking water. He knew what to do now, moved with efficiency if not quite ease. When Diablo challenged him at the coop, Scott stood his ground, waiting until the rooster decided he wasn't worth the effort. That evening, preparing vegetables for tomorrow's dinner, Scott asked, "Did you really stay at the Four Seasons the whole time? Presidential suite. Ruth and I had spa treatments twice a day." He laughed, really laughed. That's genius. Evil genius, but genius. Your father would have enjoyed it. He always said I was too nice to you. He was right. Yes, he usually was. We talked through dinner, not about the past, but about the present, the veterans he worked with, the horses he'd learned to read, the kid who now showed up every day at 4 a.m., slowly healing through hard work and horse wisdom. "I'm seeing someone," he mentioned casually. "A veterinarian. She volunteers at the ranch, grew up on a cattle farm in Wyoming. And she says I'm soft but salvageable. Smart woman. She wants to meet you. Maybe Christmas? Maybe. Let's get through Thanksgiving first." That night, I heard him get up several times, checking on the horses like Adam used to do. Nature or nurture, finally expressing itself correctly. Thanksgiving morning arrived crisp and clear. We worked through the morning feeding, then came inside to cook. Scott fumbled with the turkey, forgot to set timers, burned the rolls, but he tried, genuinely tried, without complaint or excuse. As we sat down to eat, overcooked turkey, lumpy gravy, slightly scorched vegetables, he raised his glass of apple cider. "To Dad," he said. "To you. To the ranch. To second chances I don't deserve, but am grateful for. To learning," I countered. "However long it takes." We ate in peaceful silence, watching the mountains through the window. The mechanical bull stood in the garden, now decorated with Christmas lights, because why not? The horses grazed peacefully. Diablo, for once, was quiet. "Mom," Scott said suddenly, "I need to tell you something." I tensed. "The development company. I didn't just inquiry about the ranch value. I had papers drawn up, power of attorney documents. I was going to... If you had shown any sign of decline, I was going to..." "I know," I said quietly. "Mr. Davidson told Ruth everything. How can you forgive that?" I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the shame, the growth, the struggle toward becoming the man his father had hoped he'd be. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, Scott. It's choosing to move forward anyway. Your father taught me that during his illness. Every day he forgave his body for failing, forgave the universe for the unfairness, forgave himself for leaving me. Forgiveness is just another kind of work. Like ranching. Exactly like ranching. Daily, unglamorous, necessary. He nodded, understanding in a way he couldn't have 6 months ago. That afternoon, as we walked the property, he asked, "The trust, the ranch going to the Hendersons, is that real?" "Yes." "Good." I stopped walking. "Good? It shouldn't be mine. I haven't earned it. Maybe someday I'll be worthy of being part of its legacy, but not through inheritance, through work, through showing up every day and proving I understand what it means." "And what does it mean?" He looked around, at the mountains, the grazing horses, the endless sky. "It means choosing love over money, purpose over profit, hard work over easy paths. It means being a steward, not an owner." Adam would have been proud. I was proud. "The Hendersons need help with their calving season come spring," I mentioned casually. "Are you inviting me to visit? I'm suggesting you might want to learn about cattle. If you're going to understand ranching, really understand it, you need more than horses and llamas." Bonaparte? God help you, yes, Bonaparte. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Scott helped me feed the horses one more time. Thunder accepted a carrot from his hand. Bella allowed him to brush her. Scout remained aloof, but didn't actively reject him. Progress. Thank you, Scott said as we walked back to the house. For the lesson. The weekend from hell. The wake-up call. All of it. Thank Tom and Miguel. And the Petersons' rescue horses. And especially Napoleon. A llama changed my life. There's a sentence I never thought I'd say. We laughed, parent and child, walking together across land that would never be his, but might, someday, with enough work and growth, be home to him again. That night, I found him sitting on the porch despite the cold, looking at the stars. Dad did this, didn't he? Sat out here at night? Every night, even when he could barely walk. What did he think about? The future? The past? The moment? Everything and nothing. I'm sorry I missed it. Sorry I missed him. The real him, not the city version I preferred. He's here, I said, gesturing at the vast darkness punctuated by stars. In the land, the animals, the work, in you, when you choose to see it. Scott nodded, pulling his jacket tighter. I choose to see it, and maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to. Before you go, if you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, on a scale of 0 to 10, what would you rate my response to uninvited guests who tried to take over my home? Christmas arrived with a blizzard that would have made the national news if anyone cared about rural Montana. 3 feet of snow in 18 hours, winds that could knock a grown man sideways, and temperatures that made the horses' water freeze solid every 2 hours. Scott had been visiting monthly since Thanksgiving, each time staying longer, working harder. But this was his first real winter test. He'd arrived 3 days before Christmas with Sarah, the veterinarian from Colorado, a woman who looked like she could birth a calf and attend the Met Gala with equal confidence. You must be the famous Gail, she said, shaking my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. I've heard about the llama incident. All lies, I said. It was much worse than whatever he told you. She laughed, a rich, genuine sound. He showed me the video, the one with Napoleon on the mechanical bull. I've watched it approximately 47 times. I decided I liked her. The blizzard hit that night. By morning, we were snowed in properly. No power, no getting to the barn without digging a tunnel, and definitely no leaving the ranch. Sarah took it in stride, but I watched Scott carefully. This was the test. Not llamas or roosters or even pig-destroyed Mercedes, just pure, relentless Montana winter. We need to get to the horses, I said at 4 a.m., handing him a shovel. It took 3 hours to dig the path to the barn. Sarah worked beside us without complaint, actually humming what sounded like Christmas carols. When we finally reached the horses, they nickered desperately, cold, hungry, worried. Water heaters are frozen, I announced. We'll need to haul buckets from the house every 2 hours. Every 2 hours? Scott asked. All day? All day, all night, until the temperature rises or the power comes back. That could be days. Yes. I waited for the complaint, the suggestion that surely there was an easier way, the inevitable city boy solution that wouldn't work. Instead, he simply said, I'll take the night shifts. You need your sleep. Sarah kicked him. We'll take the night shifts. Together. And they did. Every 2 hours for 3 days, I'd hear them trudging through the snow, hauling hot water from the wood stove I kept for emergencies. No complaints reached my ears, just quiet conversation and occasional laughter. On day 2, we ran low on hay. The delivery truck couldn't get through, roads were impassable. The horses were getting nervous, sensing our concern. There's emergency hay at the Hendersons, I said, but it's 2 miles through the storm. How do we get it here without a truck? Sarah asked. The old way, I said, pointing to the sled Adam had restored years ago. We harness Thunder and haul it. Scott's eyes widened. Thunder? The horse who hated me for months? The very same. He's done this before. Question is whether he'll do it for you. It was brutal. Harnessing a horse in a blizzard, navigating 2 miles through waist-deep snow, loading hay while your fingers turned to ice, then making the journey back with a frightened horse and precious cargo. But Scott did it. More than that, Thunder trusted him to do it. When they returned, both man and horse covered in ice, there was something different between them. Understanding, respect, partnership. Dad would have been proud, I said quietly, as Scott rubbed Thunder down, checking every inch for injury or strain. I hope so, he replied, and I heard Adam's humility in his voice. That night, Christmas Eve, we lost the last of our stored water when the pipes froze. Sarah and I were melting snow on the wood stove when Scott disappeared into the basement. He emerged an hour later, triumphant and filthy. "Fixed it," he announced. "Remember Dad teaching me about pipe insulation when I was 12? I was too busy playing video games to pay attention, but something must have stuck. The water flowed." Sarah kissed him. I pretended not to tear up. Christmas morning dawned crystal clear and deadly cold, -37 degrees. The kind of cold that kills batteries, cracks windows, and makes breathing hurt. But the horses needed care, snow or no snow, Christmas or not. We worked in shifts, 10 minutes outside before rotating in to warm up. The horses' water froze between checks. Ice formed on Thunder's whiskers. Bella's blanket froze to her body and had to be carefully thawed. But we managed, together. That afternoon, as we sat exhausted around the wood stove eating canned soup, our Christmas dinner, Sarah said something that stopped my heart. "This is what Scott described," she said to me, "when he talks about his father. This kind of brutal, beautiful commitment to something bigger than yourself. Adam loved the difficult days most," I admitted. "Said they showed you who you really were." "Who are we?" Scott asked, genuinely curious. "Today, we're ranchers, real ones. Not Instagram ranchers or hobby farmers, the kind who do whatever it takes, whenever it's needed, without thought of comfort or convenience. Even on Christmas? Especially on Christmas. Animals don't know it's a holiday." The power came back that evening. As lights flickered on and the furnace rumbled to life, Sarah found the photo album Scott had made of Adam. "Is this him?" she asked, pointing to a picture of Adam with newborn Thunder, both covered in birthing fluids and straw, both grinning like idiots. "First foal born on the ranch," I confirmed. "Thunder came out fighting, knocked Adam flat on his back. Adam laughed for 20 minutes straight." "Tell me more," Sarah said, settling in. So I did. Stories poured out. Adam learning to ride at 55. Adam building the barn with his own hands. Adam during his last winter, so weak from chemo he could barely walk, but still insisting on breaking ice on water troughs every morning. "He sounds wonderful," Sarah said softly. "He was," Scott said. "I just couldn't see it then. I was too busy being embarrassed by his muddy boots at my college graduation, his old truck at my wedding, his stories about cattle at business dinners. Sabrina encouraged that," I said carefully. It was the first time I'd mentioned his ex-wife since the divorce. "Sabrina wanted me to be someone I'm not," Scott replied. "Someone I tried to be and failed at spectacularly. The question," Sarah said, looking at him intently, "is who you want to be now." Before he could answer, a sound split the night, a horse in distress. We ran to the barn to find Bella down in her stall, thrashing, clearly in colic. "It's bad," Sarah said after a quick examination. "We need the vet immediately." "Roads are still closed," I said, fighting panic. "Nearest vet is 40 miles out." "I'm a vet," Sarah reminded us, "but I need supplies, medications." "Doc Henderson has a kit," Scott said suddenly. "Big Jim mentioned it at Thanksgiving. For emergencies when the roads are blocked. That's 3 miles in the opposite direction," I said. "In the dark, in this cold. Then I better get moving." He was gone before we could protest, taking Thunder again, the only horse strong enough for another journey through the snow. Sarah and I stayed with Bella, walking her when she could stand, monitoring her vitals, praying. Colic could kill a horse in hours. Every minute Scott was gone felt like a year. He made it back in 90 minutes, an impossible time that meant he'd run portions himself to spare Thunder. His face was frost-burned, his hands barely functional, but he had the medical kit. Sarah worked through the night. Scott and I took turns walking Bella, holding her head when the pain hit, whispering promises and prayers. At dawn, the crisis passed. Bella would live. "You did that," Sarah told Scott. "That run probably saved her life." He was sitting on a hay bale, exhausted beyond measure, steam rising from his soaked clothes. "Dad would have done it faster." "No," I said firmly. "He wouldn't have. You matched him, Scott, maybe even exceeded him." He looked at me with surprise. "Really? Really?" That evening, after 16 hours of crisis and resolution, we sat in the kitchen while Sarah cooked something elaborate from our meager supplies. Scott was reading Adam's journal. I'd finally given it to him that morning. "He wrote about me," Scott said, voice thick. "Scott called today. Tried to explain the ranch again. He didn't understand. Maybe someday. Entry after entry, variations of the same hope. He never gave up on you, I said simply, even when he should have. Parents don't give up. We wait. We hope. Sometimes we set elaborate traps involving llamas, but we never give up. Sarah laughed from the stove. The llama trap should be taught in parenting classes. It was more improvisation than plan, I admitted. The best revenge always is, she said, and I definitely liked this woman. After dinner, Scott stood abruptly. I need to show you something. He returned with a manila envelope, hands shaking slightly as he offered it to me. Inside were legal documents, complex ones that took me a moment to understand. It's a conservation easement, he explained. I've been working with the land trust people. If you agree, it protects the ranch forever. No development, no subdivision, no matter who owns it. It stays agricultural land in perpetuity, and there's a tax benefit that would help with the mounting costs. I stared at the papers. You did this? I wanted to fix what I tried to break, to protect what Dad loved, what you love. The trust naming the Hendersons is good, but this is ironclad. Even they couldn't sell to developers if they wanted to. This must have taken months. Since October, Sarah helped with the ecological surveys. I looked between them. My son, transformed by work and humility, and this remarkable woman who saw his potential. There's one more thing, Scott continued. Page 12. I flipped to it. A provision naming Scott as assistant ranch manager if he completed a 2-year agricultural program and worked the ranch for 5 consecutive years and maintained the land according to strict conservation guidelines. Not inheriting, he said quickly. Earning, maybe, if you'll have me. 5 years is a long time, I said carefully. It's a start, he replied. Dad gave the ranch 40 years. I can give it 5, or 50, whatever it takes. I signed the papers. Sarah whooped. Scott cried, really cried, for the first time since Adam's funeral. That night, unable to sleep, I found Scott in the barn with Thunder. He was brushing the great horse, talking to him quietly about plans for spring, about learning to train colts, about proving worthy of the land. Thunder, my stubborn particular horse who barely tolerated anyone but me, rested his massive head on Scott's shoulder. He forgives you, I said from the doorway. Do you? I thought about it, really thought about it. About Scott, the entitled city boy who'd tried to steal my home. About Scott, the desperate man covered in llama spit and horse manure. About Scott, the emerging rancher who'd risked frostbite to save Bella. Forgiveness is ongoing, I said finally. Like ranch work, you do it every day and some days it's easier than others. What kind of day is today? A good one, a very good one. He smiled, Adam's smile, finally grown into it. Mom, I need to tell you something. Sarah and I are getting married, I finished. The ring's in your pocket. You've been fidgeting with it all day. He laughed. That obvious? To someone who changed your diapers? Yes. We want to do it here, at the ranch, in spring when everything's green. Napoleon can be ring bearer. God no, Bonaparte maybe. He seems calmer. Bonaparte ate Mrs. Henderson's wedding roses last week. Regular ring bearer then. We stood together in the barn, surrounded by sleeping horses and the ghosts of better days that were somehow becoming present days, becoming future days. Your father would be so proud, I said, of who you're becoming. Not who I am yet. None of us are who we are yet. We're all becoming. Even at 67, I'm still becoming. Becoming what? I thought about it. Patient, forgiving, strong enough to defend my boundaries, but wise enough to lower them when someone earns passage. Have I earned it? You're earning it. Present continuous tense. Every bucket of water hauled, every fence mended, every dawn feeding in sub-zero weather. It never ends, does it? The earning? No. That's the beautiful part. There's always another chance to prove yourself, another day to choose correctly, another season to grow into. The barn was quiet, except for the horses breathing and the wind rattling the walls. Somewhere in the house, Sarah was probably planning a ranch wedding that would somehow be both elegant and practical, like her. I love you, Mom, Scott said. I should have said it more, should have shown it better. You're showing it now, that's what matters. And it was. In the end, the ranch didn't care about past failures or future promises. It only cared about the present moment, the water that needed hauling now, the hay that needed distributing now, the love that needed expressing now. Scott understood that finally. And maybe that understanding was the real inheritance Adam had left us both. Spring arrived like a resurrection. The snow melted in dramatic torrents, turning our peaceful creek into a raging river. The pastures exploded in green so vivid it hurt your eyes. And the animals, oh, the animals went absolutely mad with joy. Even Diablo seemed less homicidal, though he did chase the wedding planner off the property twice. Yes, the wedding planner. Sarah had hired someone from Billings who arrived in a white Range Rover wearing heels that sank immediately into the spring mud. She took one look at the mechanical bull, still decorated with Christmas lights and now sporting a bird's nest in its control panel, and asked if we could remove that eyesore. That's a monument to authenticity, I told her. It stays. But the aesthetic? The aesthetic is Montana Ranch meets Colorado veterinarian meets reformed city boy. If you can't work with that, you're at the wrong wedding. She quit. Sarah hired her sister instead, a woman who arrived in a muddy pickup with a cooler of beer and a binder full of what she called realistic ranch wedding ideas. Scott had been living in the renovated barn apartment since January, working the ranch full-time while taking online agriculture courses at night. I'd catch him at 2 a.m., laptop open, studying soil management while bottle feeding an orphaned calf we'd named Hope. "You don't have to do everything at once," I told him one morning after he'd fallen asleep, standing up during feeding time. "Dad did," he replied. During chemo, he was still learning, still working, still planning. I found his notebooks, crop rotation schedules for the next decade, breeding plans for the horses, sketches for a greenhouse he never built. "Your father was stubborn to a fault." "It wasn't stubbornness," Scott said quietly. "It was love. Every plan was a promise that the ranch would continue, that you'd have what you needed, that the dream wouldn't die with him." He was right. Adam's notebooks, which I'd finally shared with Scott, were love letters to the future. Detailed instructions for everything from treating founder and horses to the perfect timing for planting heirloom tomatoes at our altitude. 2 weeks before the wedding, disaster struck. Not llamas or pigs this time. A late spring blizzard, the kind that kills newborn calves and destroys early gardens. Weather Service called it a once-in-a-century event. The Hendersons lost 12 calves. The Petersons lost their entire greenhouse. We were luckier. The horses were safe. The chickens only mildly traumatized. But the wedding tent collapsed. The carefully cultivated wildflower meadow where Sarah wanted to say vows became a pond. And the access road washed out completely. "We could postpone," Sarah suggested, though I could see it killed her to say it. "Absolutely not," Scott said. "We're ranchers. We adapt." And adapt they did. The ceremony moved to the barn. Tom and Miguel spent 3 days cleaning and decorating it with lights that made the old wood glow gold. The wildflower meadow was replaced with hay bales arranged in a circle. The washed-out road meant guests had to park a mile away and take a hayride to the ranch. Big Jim Henderson volunteered his team of Clydesdales for transport. The morning of the wedding, I found Scott in Thunder's stall, fully dressed in his suit but covered in a protective apron, brushing the horse to gleaming perfection. "He's part of the ceremony," Scott explained. "Sarah's riding in on him." "Thunder? Our Thunder who used to knock you into water troughs? We've come to an understanding. He tolerates my existence, and I worship his magnificence." Sounds like your father's relationship with Diablo. "Did Dad ever win that rooster over?" "The day before he died, Diablo let him collect eggs without attacking. I think it was the rooster's version of saying goodbye." Scott stopped brushing. "Tell me about that day." "His last day." So I did. How Adam had insisted on morning chores despite being unable to walk without help. How he'd sat on the porch for hours, memorizing every view. How he'd written letters to Scott, letters I'd never sent because they contained forgiveness for transgressions Scott hadn't even committed yet, as if Adam knew what was coming. "Do you still have them? In the safe. Wedding present, maybe?" "Mom, thank you." The ceremony itself was perfect in its imperfection. Sarah did indeed ride in on Thunder, who had flowers braided in his mane and looked deeply offended by the indignity. Diablo escaped his pen and strutted down the aisle during the vows, causing the city relatives to flee to higher ground. Bonaparte the llama watched through the barn window, occasionally humming his disapproval. But when Scott and Sarah exchanged vows, they'd written themselves, promises to work beside each other through blizzards and droughts, to find beauty in difficult days, to build something lasting on land that demanded everything. There wasn't a dry eye in the barn. Even the Hendersons cried, though Big Jim claimed it was allergies. The reception took place around the mechanical bull, which Sarah's sister had wrapped in white lights and surrounded with wildflowers rescued from the flood. The city relatives looked horrified. The ranch folks thought it was brilliant. "Is that the famous bull?" Marcus asked. He'd driven up from Colorado with 6 other veterans from the therapy ranch. "The very one," I confirmed. "Napoleon blessed it with his presence. Scott tells that story at least once a week. Gets better every time." "How's he doing down there? Really?" Marcus got serious. "He's one of the best volunteers we've had. Shows up, shuts up, does the work. The horses trust him. More importantly, the veterans trust him. Your boy learned something important." "What's that?" "How to earn respect instead of expecting it." As if summoned by the compliment, Scott appeared with Sarah, both of them flushed from dancing. "Mom," Sarah said, "we have something to tell you." My heart sank. They were leaving, of course. Young couple, opportunities elsewhere. "We're pregnant," she blurted out. "Due in December." The world tilted. A grandchild, here, on the ranch. "A baby," I said stupidly. "Here?" "If you'll have us," Scott said quickly. "The barn apartment's too small, but we could add on, or build something new, or—" "Your father's office," I interrupted. "I've been using it for storage. It could be a nursery." Both of them stared at me. "You'd want us in the house? Babies need grandmothers. Grandmothers need babies. And this house needs life in it again." Sarah hugged me so hard I thought my ribs might crack. Scott just stood there, stunned. "Dad would have loved this," he finally said. "He would have been impossible," I corrected. "Already buying miniature cowboy boots and planning which horse would be the baby's first ride." "Thunder's too old by then," Scott said seriously. "But Bella's gentle enough. The baby won't be riding horses for years. 2 years minimum," Sarah agreed. And I realized I was outnumbered by people who thought 2-year-olds on horseback was reasonable. Ranch people. My people now. The party continued past midnight. At some point, someone, probably Tom, after too much beer, activated the mechanical bull. The veterans took turns riding it, whooping and hollering. Even Bonaparte seemed impressed, though he expressed it by spitting on anyone who scored less than 8 seconds. I found myself on the porch with Patricia, of all people, Scott's former mother-in-law, who'd arrived wearing what looked like designer boots that she'd clearly bought specifically for a ranch wedding. "I owe you an apology," she said stiffly. "You owe me nothing." "I do. I encouraged the worst in them. In Scott, in Sabrina. I thought ranching was beneath them, beneath you. And now?" She gestured at the scene. Scott teaching Marcus's daughter to line dance, Sarah examining someone's horse with professional intensity, even in her wedding dress, the mountains dark against stars so bright they seemed fake. "Now I think I missed the point of everything," she admitted. "Sabrina's remarried, you know, investment banker. They live in a penthouse that costs more than this ranch. She's miserable." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. She chose surface over substance." They both did, but Scott found his way back. "He earned his way back," I corrected. "Important difference." "Yes," Patricia agreed. "Adam would be proud." "You didn't know Adam well." "No, but I saw how he looked at you. At this place. Like he'd won the lottery every single day." "Scott looks at Sarah that way now." She was right. Across the yard, Scott was spinning Sarah, both of them laughing as Diablo pecked at their feet, probably demanding tribute. "Stay the night," I offered. "Guest rooms improved since your last visit. No more rescue horses in the living room? Only on special occasions." She laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd ever heard from her. "I might take you up on that. These boots are killing me. There's muck boots in the mudroom. Size 8? 7.5. Close enough for ranch work. Is that an invitation to morning chores? 4:30 sharp. Diablo waits for no one." "God help me, I'm actually considering it." She did stay. And she did show up for morning chores, wearing Adam's old muck boots and one of my barn jackets. She was terrible at it, scared of the chickens, confused by the feed proportions, absolutely terrorized by Bonaparte. But she tried. "This is harder than CrossFit," she panted after wrestling a hay bale. "Ranch fit is different from gym fit," I agreed. "Ask Scott about his first month. He mentioned something about crying in the barn. Multiple times. Character-building tears. As the sun rose over the mountains, painting everything gold, Patricia stood transfixed. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "I mean, I saw it before, but I didn't really see it." "That's the thing about ranch life," I said. "It's too hard to appreciate if you're not doing the work. The beauty is earned. Like respect." Exactly like respect. The newlyweds emerged from the house, sleepy but smiling. Sarah already had her hand on her still flat stomach, protective and proud. Scott looked at me with Adam's eyes, full of plans and promises. "Morning, Mom," he said. "Ready for chores?" "Always," I said, and meant it. 4 generations would work this land, I realized. Adam's dreams hadn't died. They'd just taken a detour through llama-induced chaos to find their way home. "Oh," Scott added casually. "Bonaparte got out again. He's in the vegetable garden." "Of course he is," I sighed, grabbing the llama halter. Some things never change, and on a ranch, that's oddly comforting. The mechanical bull stood silent in the morning light, covered in wedding flowers and bird droppings, a monument to the beautiful absurdity of forcing people to face exactly what they claimed to want. In the distance, Diablo crowed, announcing another day of small disasters and smaller miracles. This was ranch life, real, authentic, difficult, beautiful ranch life. And finally, my son was home. December arrived with a gentleness unusual for Montana, as if the weather itself knew we needed mercy. Sarah was 8 months pregnant, moving like a ship in full sail, still insisting on checking the horses twice daily, despite barely being able to see her feet. Scott had transformed in ways that continued to surprise me. He'd taken over the ranch's financial management, discovering we'd been hemorrhaging money on feed costs and equipment rentals. Within 6 months, he'd renegotiated contracts, found better suppliers, and somehow increased our savings while improving operations. "It's just spreadsheets, Mom," he'd said when I expressed amazement. "But spreadsheets that smell like horse manure now." The nursery was ready. Adam's office transformed with pale yellow walls and furniture Scott built himself, having learned woodworking from YouTube and Big Jim Henderson. The crib was solid pine, sturdy enough for generations. Above it hung Adam's favorite photo, the whole family at Scott's college graduation, even Adam's muddy boots visible at the edge of the frame. 3 days before the due date, I woke to find Scott already in the kitchen at 3 a.m., fully dressed and pacing. "She's in labor," he said. "Wants to finish morning chores first." Of course she does. We found Sarah in the barn, timing contractions while filling water buckets. Between contractions, she was lecturing Thunder about proper hoof care. "Hospital," Scott said firmly. "After chores," Sarah countered. "Sarah, your father worked this ranch until the day he went into hospice," she said. "I can finish morning feeding." I saw the moment Scott understood he'd married his father's spiritual daughter. The recognition was both beautiful and terrifying. We compromised. Sarah supervised from a hay bale while Scott and I did the work. Every contraction, she'd grip the bale and breathe through it, while Bella watched with concerned eyes. 5 minutes apart, I finally announced. "Hospital, now." The drive to Billings took 2 hours on a good day. This wasn't a good day. Fresh snow had started falling, thick and fast. Scott drove, while Sarah squeezed his hand so hard I heard knuckles crack. I sat in the back, calling the hospital, praying we'd make it. We almost didn't. 40 minutes from the hospital, Sarah announced, "The baby's coming now." "Now?" Scott's voice cracked like a teenager's. "Now." Scott pulled over. We were in the middle of nowhere, snow falling heavily, cell service spotty. This was every ranch parent's nightmare, and somehow also perfectly fitting. "I've delivered hundreds of calves," Sarah panted. "How different can it be?" "Very different," Scott and I said simultaneously. But Sarah was right about one thing. The baby wasn't waiting. With the confidence of someone who'd handled far worse situations with large animals, she talked us through it. Scott caught his son in shaking hands, just as the ambulance we'd managed to call arrived. Adam Robert Morrison, 8 pounds, 3 ounces, born in a pickup truck during a snowstorm, already screaming his opinions about everything. "Just like his grandfather," I said, watching the baby's furious red face. Adam came out arguing too. The EMTs took over, but the baby was perfect, pink, loud, and absolutely perfect. Sarah was triumphant. Scott was in shock. "Did we just deliver our baby on Highway 287? He asked. "We did," Sarah confirmed. "Put it in the baby book. Location of birth, Ford F-150, mile marker 47. At the hospital, after everyone was checked and declared healthy, I held my grandson for the first time. He had Scott's nose, Sarah's chin, and Adam's eyes, that particular shade of blue-green that changed with the light. "Hi, little one," I whispered. "Welcome to the chaos." He gripped my finger with surprising strength, as if already preparing for the work ahead. 2 days later, we brought him home to the ranch. The animals seemed to know something momentous had happened. Even Diablo was subdued, pecking gently at the ground instead of attacking. Thunder whinnied softly when we passed, a greeting for the newest member of the herd. That first night, I found Scott in the nursery at 2 a.m., not because the baby was crying, but because he was reading to him from Adam's journal. "March 15th, Scott read quietly. "Helped birth a calf today. Difficult delivery, but mother and baby survived." Scott called from Chicago, closed a big deal, sounded happy. Wish he could have seen the calf. There's something about watching life begin that puts everything in perspective. Maybe someday he'll understand. "He would have loved this," I said from the doorway. "A grandchild, on the ranch. I wasted so much time, Mom." "No, you took the long way home. Different thing entirely." Christmas came a week later, our first as a complete family in years. Sarah's parents arrived from Wyoming, ranch people who immediately understood the rhythm of our life. Big Jim and Dolly Henderson stopped by with a handmade rocking horse. Tom and Miguel brought their families for Christmas dinner. And Bonaparte. Somehow Bonaparte got into the house. "How does he keep doing this?" Scott demanded, trying to herd the llama away from the Christmas tree. "He's Bonaparte," I said, as if that explained everything. Which, honestly, it did. The baby watched the chaos from his bouncer, eyes wide and curious. 6 days old and already fascinated by the insanity of ranch life. Sarah's father, Robert, told stories about his own ranch childhood while Bonaparte investigated the presents. My mother always said babies born in barns or trucks were blessed with understanding animals. Old wives' tale, but you'd be surprised how often it proves true. After dinner, with everyone gathered and Bonaparte finally exiled to the porch, I stood to make a toast. Adam always said the ranch wasn't about the land or the animals. It was about family, the one you're born into, and the one you choose. This year, we chose to become the family he always believed we could be. I looked at Scott, holding his son while Sarah leaned against him. It took mechanical bulls and rescue horses and a particularly vindictive rooster, but we made it home. "To Dad," Scott said, raising his glass. "To Adam." "To Adam," everyone echoed. Outside, snow began falling again, gentle this time. Through the window, I could see the mechanical bull, now decorated with Christmas lights and a Santa hat someone, probably Tom, had added. A monument to the summer that changed everything. That night, after everyone had gone home or to bed, I found myself in the barn with Thunder. He was getting old, moving slower, but still magnificent. "We did it, old friend," I told him. "We survived. We thrived. We brought them home." He nickered softly, pushing his great head against my shoulder. In the distance, a coyote howled. An owl answered. The ranch sang its nighttime chorus, the same as always, but also completely different. Because now it sang for 4 generations, past, present, and future. I thought about Adam, about what he'd say if he could see us now. Probably something practical like, "Check the water heaters," or "That baby needs warmer pajamas." But underneath would be pride, joy, the satisfaction of dreams, not just preserved, but expanded. My phone buzzed. A text from Scott. "Baby's first sunrise tomorrow. Want to join us?" "Always," I texted back, and I would. Every sunrise, every feeding, every small disaster and smaller miracle. Because that's what family does. That's what ranchers do. That's what love looks like when it's dressed in muck boots and carrying water buckets at 4 a.m. The mechanical bull stood silent in the snow, its purpose fulfilled. It had forced authenticity on those who needed it most. Now it could rest, a reminder that sometimes the best response to entitlement is creative justice, served with a side of llama spit. 5 years from now, little Adam would probably be riding Thunder's successor. 10 years from now, he'd be fighting with Diablo's offspring over egg collection. 20 years from now, who knew? Maybe he'd go to the city, chase dreams that had nothing to do with ranching. And that would be okay, because he'd always know what home really meant. Not inheritance, but investment. Not ownership, but stewardship. Not ease, but worth. But tonight, on this quiet December evening, with snow falling and my family sleeping safely under one roof, I had everything Adam and I had dreamed of. Different than planned, harder than imagined, better than hoped. Tomorrow would bring its challenges. Horses to feed, bills to pay, a baby to raise, a ranch to run. But also, sunrise over mountains, coffee with my son, Sarah's laughter, a grandchild's first smile, and the continued suspicious absence of Bonaparte from his pen. I walked back to the house, stopping to pat the mechanical bull's snow-covered head. "Thank you," I whispered to it, to the night, to Adam's memory, to the universe that had conspired to teach my son through chaos what he couldn't learn through comfort. Inside, warmth and light and family waited. Outside, the ranch kept its eternal watch, demanding everything and giving back even more. This was my authentic life, hard-earned, fiercely protected, and finally, fully shared. And it was perfect. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, what score from 0 to 10 would you give my response to uninvited guests? And remember, sometimes the best inheritance isn't what we leave behind, but what we teach through living.
Trước khi khép lại câu chuyện này, mình muốn bạn ở lại với mình thêm một chút, như một cuộc trò chuyện thực sự, không vội vàng, không kịch bản. Đôi khi mình nghĩ điều đặc biệt nhất của những câu chuyện như thế này không phải là cao trào, không phải là cái kết, mà là những cảm xúc còn đọng lại sau khi mọi thứ đã kết thúc. Bạn có bao giờ xem xong một câu chuyện rồi tự nhiên im lặng vài giây không? Không phải vì không có gì để nói, mà là vì có quá nhiều thứ đang chạy trong đầu. Mình thì có. Và mỗi lần như vậy mình lại tự hỏi, ngoài kia có bao nhiêu câu chuyện giống như thế này mà chúng ta chưa từng được nghe. Bao nhiêu con người đã trải qua những điều khó khăn như vậy nhưng không có ai kể lại. Bao nhiêu người phụ nữ đã phải mạnh mẽ trong im lặng mà không ai thực sự nhìn thấy. Đó là điều khiến mình luôn suy nghĩ rất nhiều sau mỗi video. Bởi vì sự mạnh mẽ không phải lúc nào cũng ồn ào. Nó không phải lúc nào cũng là những khoảnh khắc đứng trên sân khấu hay những chiến thắng rõ ràng để mọi người vỗ tay. Đôi khi sự mạnh mẽ chỉ đơn giản là thức dậy vào mỗi buổi sáng khi bạn không còn chút năng lượng nào, tiếp tục cố gắng khi mọi thứ dường như đang chống đối lại bạn. Mỉm cười dù bên trong bạn đang rất mệt mỏi. Và điều đặc biệt là rất nhiều người phụ nữ ngoài kia đang làm điều đó mỗi ngày. Không ai biết, không ai hỏi, nhưng họ vẫn tiếp tục. Những nhân vật trong câu chuyện bạn vừa xem có thể là hư cấu, nhưng cảm xúc của họ thì không hề hư cấu. Nỗi đau là sự thật, sự tổn thương là thật, và cả sự kiên cường cũng là thật. Đó là lý do tại sao mình luôn muốn kể những câu chuyện như thế này. Không phải để làm mọi thứ trở nên buồn hơn, mà để chúng ta có thể hiểu hơn, hiểu rằng đằng sau mỗi con người là cả một hành trình mà chúng ta không thể nhìn thấy. Hiểu rằng đôi khi sự im lặng của một người không phải là họ yếu đuối, mà là họ đã phải chịu đựng quá nhiều. Và hiểu rằng sự vươn lên không phải lúc nào cũng hoàn hảo. Có những lần họ sẽ gục ngã, có những lúc họ sẽ nghi ngờ chính mình, có những khoảnh khắc họ muốn từ bỏ tất cả. Nhưng rồi họ vẫn đứng dậy, không phải vì họ không sợ, mà là vì họ không còn lựa chọn nào khác ngoài việc phải tiếp tục. Và mình nghĩ đó mới là định nghĩa thực sự của sức mạnh. Không phải là không bao giờ yếu đuối, mà là vẫn bước tiếp, ngay cả khi bạn đang yếu đuối nhất. Có thể khi nghe đến đây, bạn sẽ thấy câu chuyện này không chỉ là về một nhân vật nữa, mà là về rất nhiều con người. Có thể là một người bạn của bạn, một người thân trong gia đình, hoặc thậm chí là chính bạn. Và nếu bạn từng trải qua những cảm xúc tương tự, thì mình muốn bạn biết một điều, bạn không hề đơn độc. Có thể câu chuyện của bạn chưa được kể, có thể không ai thực sự hiểu hết những gì bạn đã đi qua, nhưng điều đó không làm cho những gì bạn trải qua trở nên ít quan trọng hơn. Ngược lại, nó càng cho thấy bạn đã mạnh mẽ như thế nào để đi đến đây. Và đó cũng là lý do mình luôn hy vọng khi bạn xem được những video này, bạn không chỉ xem để giải trí, mà bạn sẽ cảm nhận, bạn sẽ dừng lại một chút để nghĩ, để nhìn mọi thứ chậm lại, để hiểu hơn về con người và về chính mình. Bởi vì đôi khi một câu chuyện có thể không thay đổi cả thế giới, nhưng nó có thể thay đổi cách bạn nhìn nhận về thế giới. Và như thế đã là rất đủ rồi. Nếu bạn đã đi cùng mình đến tận đây, thật sự mình rất trân trọng điều đó. Không phải ai cũng có đủ kiên nhẫn để lắng nghe đến tận giây phút cuối cùng. Và việc bạn vẫn ở đây có nghĩa là câu chuyện này đã chạm đến bạn, dù chỉ một chút. Nếu bạn muốn, bạn có thể tiếp tục đồng hành cùng mình trong những video tiếp theo. Vẫn sẽ là những câu chuyện như thế này. Những câu chuyện có thể sẽ khiến bạn suy nghĩ nhiều hơn, có thể khiến bạn cảm thấy nặng lòng, nhưng cũng có thể mang lại cho bạn một góc nhìn khác. Và trước khi kết thúc, mình chỉ muốn nói một điều thôi. Đôi khi cuộc sống sẽ không công bằng, đôi khi mọi thứ sẽ xảy ra theo cách mà bạn không thể kiểm soát. Nhưng điều bạn luôn có thể kiểm soát là việc bạn chọn đứng dậy như thế nào sau tất cả. Dù chậm cũng được, dù mệt cũng được, chỉ cần bạn vẫn bước tiếp thì bạn đã mạnh mẽ hơn bạn nghĩ rất nhiều rồi. Cảm ơn vì các bạn đã ở đây, đã lắng nghe và đã cùng mình đi qua những câu chuyện này. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong những câu chuyện tiếp theo. Bye!